The ribbons, please.
From the back. Okay.
If I can have your attention, please. We're about to begin the services for Ms. Tina Grossman. Just as a gentle reminder, if you have a cell phone with you this afternoon, to please place it in the silent mode or turn it off completely. That would be appreciated. The services will be officiated by Rabbi Allison Abrams, who will begin the ceremony of Kriya.
This afternoon, we remember Tina Grossman and join our hearts together to give comfort and strength to her wonderful family. We sit with her children and her grandchildren who loved her and mourn her today. We sit with Anna, who for over 30 years helped to care for Tina's home and ensured that she could remain there, supporting Tina as a friend and a consistent presence in her life. Mourning is a time filled with many emotions and memories, bitter and sweet. And we honor all of that in our service this afternoon as we honor Tina's life. We begin every funeral service with the recitation of Psalms and reading of Proverbs because we link Tina's life with the millennia-old tradition of the Jewish people and the eternity of God. L'kol zman v'et l'chol chefetz tachar hashamayim, et la'leretz ve'et lamut, et latad ve'et la'kor natua, et laharog ve'et lirpo, et lifrotz ve'et livnot. Kohelet said there is a time for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for being born and a time for dying, a time for planting and a time for uprooting that which is planted, a time for destroying and a time for healing, a time for tearing down and a time for building up, a time for weeping and a time for laughing, a time for wailing and a time for dancing, a time for throwing stones and a time for gathering stones, a time for embracing and a time for refraining from embraces, a time for seeking and a time for losing, a time for keeping and a time for discarding, a time for tearing and a time for sowing, a time for silence and a time for speaking, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for war and a time for peace. Esayinai el harim, me'ayin yavo azri. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian. Adonai is your protection at your right hand. By this day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. Adonai will guard your going and coming now and forever. Adonai yishmar tzeitcha uvoecha, me'ata ve'ad olam. You all received the words of the 23rd Psalm when you walked in. So if you're able to find them in your folder, I invite you as mourners and supporters of the mourners to read the words with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. It actually felt really hard writing this eulogy to wrap like Tina's spirit and all that is and was her in her life and the memories of that into words, to be honest, which I think is probably an accurate sense of the kind of life she lived, the way she lived, and what she leaves behind. Born on August 3rd, 1944, Tina grew up in Dallas, Texas. She was raised by her mother and her grandmother, who she spent summers with in Louisiana. Summers that Tina would remember with love throughout her life. In her early years, Tina modeled with her mom and sang at a very serious level. She helped provide for her family. After high school, Tina left the more rough and tumble life of her childhood and headed to the Sorbonne to begin her years of higher education. She returned to the States, graduating from Lake Forest College, marrying and starting her own fabulous family. With 4 daughters at home, Tina pursued her master's in social work, which she received from the University of Chicago, of which I know she was very proud. Her career as a licensed clinical social worker was broad and deep, and she was very passionate about her work. She handled the most complicated cases involving children that would come to DCFS, addressing domestic violence, trauma, and so much more. Very challenging circumstances. She also worked in private practice, balancing family and career, and eventually her involvement in the LGBTQ community and advocacy. As a mother, Tina was dedicated and loyal, usually smelling of her beloved Chanel No. 5. Because she was an only child, she had wanted a big family so that her children would know something different. She loved the Grossman girls and would often dress the girls in similar outfits when they were young, supporting their interests and showing up to their activities as they grew older. She had an adventurous spirit and loved food, taking her kids to every kind of restaurant in the city before it was a thing. And her Southern charm and hospitality came through as a parent, teaching them to treat others with respect and emphasizing good manners, like looking people in the eye when you are speaking with them, lest you feel her elbow behind you. Both education in general and Jewish education were very important to her, and she sent the girls to Jewish day school, camp, and on trips to Israel, providing them with opportunities she did not have as a child. Eventually, she moved with them to Evanston, where she thought their high school experience would be the best. As a voracious reader and also a writer, books were a constant in Tina's life. If there was a book she liked, she might buy 10 copies and give them to people she or the girls knew. She would often fall asleep with a book on or near her. Her apartment was covered with books through the end of her life, even into the closet. Tina also loved to travel, especially by train, and she went all over the world, including travel with her kids, Italy, Thailand, Vietnam. There are so many more, many of you know. And while Tina's life was full and accomplished and complex as a mother, when she became a grandmother, she really nailed it. Like she was made to be a grandma. Ba, as she has been lovingly called for many years, was the real deal as a grandmother. She insisted that every grandchild be brought home from the hospital in the same French layette. As the grandkids grew, she was there on the floor playing with them. They always wanted to stay at Ba's house. She even kept her daughter's childhood toys so the grandkids could play with them, and kept a dresser drawer fully stocked with candy. Obviously, she was the one they wanted to stay with. And she passed down her love of books, so grandkids could be seen leaving a bookstore with stacks of them. One of the strongest parts of Tina's legacy is sure to stem from her strong, loving presence as Ba. The last almost 4 years were hard on both Tina and her family as the Alzheimer's disease she lived with progressed. For a stubbornly independent, fiercely intelligent woman, losing her ability to read and drive, to be the independent spirit so many of us know she was devastating. So today, we recall and we honor Tina's intelligence, her independence, which characterized her in life. And we remember that those gifts cannot be erased by disease or death. The deep love that her grandkids experienced during the time they had her here on earth with them can never be taken away. And of course, no one is able to speak about Tina better than her own family. So I would first like to invite up her daughter, Rebecca, followed by her daughter, Annie, and then the grandkids.
Thank you, Rabbi. I just want to take a second. I see so many faces from my childhood, from my sisters, and it really means a lot to our family that everybody came today, so thank you. I just want to share a few words about my mom. If you knew her in life, or you're getting to know her now, you know Tina was a force of nature. She was that Southern girl, as a rabbi so eloquently described, who left Texas and was determined to live a life on her own terms. She left Dallas around 18 to study at the Sorbonne, eventually moving to Chicago to study at Lake Forest and to attend the University of Chicago. And I think her North Star was caring for children. Obviously, it came through in her work as a therapist and social worker with the 4 of us and with her 9 beautiful grandchildren, most of whom are sitting here with us today. She would do anything for someone she loved, absolutely anything. She would give you the shirt off her back. If there was a child in foster care who needed money for bus fare, she didn't think twice. She was incredibly generous with her heart and her time. I think I'm really going to miss most her smile. Because when she smiled, she was so genuine about it. She was the least fake person you'd ever want to meet. She told it like it was, whether you wanted to hear it or not. She stood up for the underdog always. I was really proud of her after she was married to our father and had 4 children. Midlife, came out as a lesbian, and that was really a pioneer ahead of her time to really own who she was, and has given, I think, all of us and her grandchildren so much freedom to be whoever we are. I think she would most want you to know that she loved all of us very, very much. She was incredibly grateful to have Jen, Naomi, Annie. I can't not say something about her two incredible brothers-in-law, Uncle Daniel, Dr. Daniel, who took care of our mom in addition to all of his responsibilities of his own, and Adam, who is more of a brother than anyone could ever hope to have in a brother-in-law. Her grandchildren, Betsy, Abby, Charlotte, Maya, Noah, Avi, Micah, Judah, and Ori, you were the light of her life. She loved you through every ounce of her being, and you are a testament to her devotion to Jewish education, to books. You are the future, and we are so incredibly proud of you. I know Ba loves you so, so very much. Thank you.
Thanks, I'm not gonna look up. My mom was truly one of a kind, and I mean this literally. I don't think there was anyone like her. My mom told it like it was, even when it was wildly inappropriate. A lot of people claim to not care what other people think, but for my mom, this was actually true. She never let anyone tell her what to do or how to do it. Trust me, we all tried. And so, rather than stick to the niceties, which my mother would have hated, I hope to channel my mom's determination and commitment to truth and directness today. As most of you know, my mom was a proud social worker, dedicating her life to working with children in foster care. And for most of my life, she looked like your typical social worker too, hippie, flowy skirts and sandals. And then, somehow later in life, she became a diehard Fox News fan and a Trump supporter. I know, she really was one of a kind. How many people do you know who can check the boxes of social worker, lesbian, Republican? I told you she was one of a kind. My mom had opinions on most everything. She hated small talk, people from the western suburbs, and inauthenticity. She loved reading, traveling, and following current events. She was complicated and eccentric. She was a force of nature. Above all, though, my mom was a profoundly dedicated, loving, and caring human being. She was extremely bright, clear in her principles, and, despite the screaming matches, absolutely loved her family. She was so dedicated to providing her kids with a Jewish education and Jewish summer camp that she pushed to get my sisters and me scholarships, not taking no for an answer, as I'm sure most of you can imagine. Now, as a parent looking back, I'm taken aback that she had the strength to ask for what she needed, all in the service of her kids. My mom overcame challenges from her own childhood to become a social worker, and through her work, she was able to better the lives of so many. As a social worker at DCFS, my mom made it a family affair. I remember her buying shoes for foster kids on her caseload when they didn't have their own. And even on one Thanksgiving, she brought home a kiddo to our house because he literally had nowhere else to go, and she couldn't stand the thought of him spending Thanksgiving alone in a group home. My mom was extremely bright and could have done anything professionally, and I've always valued that her choice was to work in a challenging and chaotic environment to help the kids who needed it most. My mother was absolutely resolute when it came to her identity. She came out as a gay woman in 1987. I can't imagine the guts it took to do this, especially as a member of the conservative Jewish community. This was not the norm back then. I admire the strength and courage it took her to be her true self in a much different time. As I said, she just didn't care what people thought. Tina had to be Tina. And she encouraged us to be ourselves as well. She loved telling people that she had 4 daughters, and she always reminded us how special it is to have sisters. 4 headstrong, dynamic, passionate girls, and it's no wonder that we've all gone on to dedicate our own lives, professionally and personally, to helping others just like she did. She encouraged us to be and do whatever we wanted in life, to have new experiences no matter how out there they were, to appreciate good food, to be our own person, and most of all, to be great mothers. My mother made sure that we always shook people's hands and looked them in the eye. She demanded that we give the same respect to everyone we met, regardless of who they were or where they were from, something I've tried to pass on to my own boys. While family wasn't always the easiest thing for my mom to navigate, she was a natural when it came to her grandchildren. They were the most important thing in her life, and she was beyond dedicated to them. Betsy, Abby, Charlotte, Maya, Noah, Avi, Judah, Micah, and Ori. You meant everything to your ba. She wanted nothing more to be around her grandkids, whether it was playing on the floor with our old Fisher-Price toys or letting you eat absolutely anything you wanted, cookies, candies, chips, you name it, all in front of the TV for hours on end. There was literally nothing she wouldn't have done for you guys. I remember when I became a new mom, I was pretty clueless. No one was sleeping, Daniel was working, and I was a mess. My mom realized this, and on her own, she started to come over every night, usually around midnight, and she would rock Judah in her arms for hours so that I could get some sleep. Judah, Micah, and Ori broke the long-standing Grossman girl run, and my mom loved having some boys around, no matter how crazy they got. And those who know me well know they're pretty crazy. Mom, while I know you had your own internal struggles that made being your daughter hard at times, I want you to know I love you and I appreciate you very much. I will remember and honor you for being the free-spirited, intelligent, hardworking, and dedicated mom and ba that you were for my entire life. I will remember you coming to all my swim meets, even though you weren't friends with any of the other parents, so you always sat alone. That wasn't actually meant to be funny. It was like, oh, it was really nice she came because she didn't know anyone. It's fine. I digress. I remember the time when you told a friend's mom who suggested you try Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig that it wasn't possible for you right then because finances were tight and you'd rather spend the money on buying me the new ice skates I so wanted. I'll remember the day you brought home a Nintendo, which we really couldn't afford at the time, and then let us stay home from school to play it all day. I'll remember how you welcomed all my friends into the house on Orrington with love, warmth, and gave us the freedom to be young and enjoy life. I'm sad about all the times when I was a kid and all through high school that I was embarrassed and tried to hide the fact that you were gay. But sometimes being brave isn't easy. Your bravery will continue to drive me. It will drive me to parent Judah, Micah, and Ori with the values you instilled in me. To proudly be yourself and to celebrate all people. While the road hasn't always been smooth and there were some unexpected twists and turns, you definitely provided us with an interesting journey. Please know that I'm honored to have been your daughter. Thank you for all that you did for me and encouraged me to come. I love you, Mom.
Hi, I'm Betsy, Ba's oldest grandchild. I'm here with her grandkids. Introduce yourself.
Abby, Maya, Noah.
When I first started talking, she told me to call her Bubby, but all I could say at the time was Ba. So, as she would do with all of us grandchildren for the rest of her life, she accommodated herself to what we wanted and what we could do. So she was Ba from then on.
Her apartment on Bellevue was the center of our young lives. Betsy and I and our friends would spend countless hours there. She would always keep the candy drawer in the kitchen fully stocked with our favorite candies, which she always knew. The hours we weren't at her apartment were mostly spent with her at the American Girl store down the street. She fueled my love for horses by telling me stories about her riding in Texas and was always the most supportive of everything that we did.
Ba loved to travel, which worked particularly well with the Gomez girls. Ba's trip to see them in Thailand was a particular highlight, and they also had trips to Florida and Arizona that they loved and will always remember. Ba also loved to read, and she wanted to share that love with all of us. There was no limit to the number of books she'd gladly shower upon us. Ba also always spoiled her grandchildren. While she would take Abby and I to the American Girl doll store, she always knew what would make Judah, Micah, and Ori smile. She bought Judah his iPad, something he always wanted, and because his mom would not let him have any kind of device, it was particularly special. Micah remembers Ba bringing them candy and toys, always showering her love through gifts.
She came up with her own nicknames for us, and I'll forever miss being called her Stella Luna. She always put us first, and we'll all miss her unexplainable amounts. We love you, Baba.
And Ba, our parents give us life, and our grandparents give us a sense of who we are and where we came from. This week, as we said goodbye to Ba, it hit me how incredibly lucky I am to be able to have my lovely grandmother with me for all of my childhood. Not only with me, but all of my family, and she was really just such a close part of all of our lives. It's rare for a grandparent-grandchild relationship to be so essential and so long-lasting, but then Ba was that exceptional kind of person every single day of her life. Until the last couple of years, my grandmother had more energy and interest in life than anyone I'd ever known. She baked and cooked and babysat and took us shopping and saw our new clothes and did fashion shows when we were little. She was always the present part of our everyday lives in such a changeable way. That constant loving presence really shapes a person. From our grandparents, we learn where we really come from, and she just loved us deeply and fully, all of us. She was the kind of person who just had more love in her heart for the more people who joined our lives. You shaped who I am. You influenced us all so greatly. I will always love you, and I will save a special corner of my heart to keep you with me. And I know we will miss you every day of our lives.
We'll take a moment for silent prayer and remembrance. A mother of generations, a woman of valor. She is precious in the gifts that she has given to our family. Her children have found truth in these gifts. We follow in patterns that she taught. She is robed in strength and dignity, and she smiles at the future. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness, especially for others, is on her tongue. We benefit and learn from her wisdom. May she always be credited for the fruit of her labor and her achievements. May she live on in glory. I'd ask you to please rise for the El Malay. El Malay Rachamim Shochem Bamromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Shechina, Im Kiroshim Uteharim, Kizor Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Chana, Shehalcha Le'olama, Bal harachmim yestreha beseter kanafav la'olamim. Bitzor bitzor hachayim et nishmatah. Adonai hu nachlatah. Tanuach b'shalom al mishkavah v'nomar. Amen. God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our beloved one, Tina Grossman, who has gone into eternity, find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold her close to you forever, so that her soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May she find a home with you, and may she rest in peace, as together we say, Amen.
Please be seated for a few brief announcements. The interment will take place at Memorial Park Cemetery located here in Skokie. For those of you joining our procession to the cemetery, we will provide those vehicles with an orange safety sticker, which should be placed in the front windshield on the passenger side, as well as magnetic flag for the top of your vehicle. And use your bright headlights at all times while in procession, as well as your emergency flasher lights. The Shiva will be observed at the following times and places. So today, following the interment until 8 p.m., and then Tuesday and Wednesday at 5 to 8 p.m., and Friday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Annie Grossman's residence, 9448 Monticello Avenue in Evanston, and then on Tuesday, 5 to 9 p.m. with a minion at 7:30 p.m. at the Levine residence at 647 West Melrose Street, Unit 1 in Chicago. Now, all this information is listed in the service folder that you received on your way in. If you did not receive one, they certainly are available when you leave. And for those of you joining us online, all this information is listed on our website at Chicago Jewish Funerals. The following people have been selected to serve as pallbearers. As I call your name, if you'll please step forward. Daniel Wachter, Adam Levine, Ron Grossman, and Brian Grossman. And at this time, I'll ask everyone to please rise as we escort Ms. Grossman's casket from the chapel.
dreams that you did too. Oh why can't oh, someday I wish upon a star, wake up with the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like a lemon drops high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. The dreams that you dare to, why, oh, why can't I?
I love you, a bushel and a peck, a bushel and a peck, and a hug around the neck, a hug around the neck, and a barrel and a heap, a barrel and a heap, and I'm talking in my sleep about you, about you. 'Cause I love you, a bushel and a peck, you bet your pretty neck I do. A doodle-doo-doo-doo. A doodle-doo-doo-doo-doo. I love you, a bushel and a peck, a bushel and a peck, though you make my heart a wreck, make my heart a wreck, and you make my life a mess, make my life a mess, yes, a mess of happiness about you, about you. 'Cause I love you, a bushel and a peck, you bet your pretty neck I do. A doodle-doo-doo-doo. A doodle-doo-doo-doo-doo. I love you, a bushel and a peck, a bushel and a peck, and it beats me all to heck, it beats me all to heck, how I'll ever tend the farm, ever tend the farm when I wanna keep my arm about you, about you. 'Cause I love you, a bushel and